Taree's Manning River District Hospital was the scene of quite a bit of excitement over the weekend when two sets of twins were born. However, it's 3-day-old Jenna Renee and Thomas Ronald who have stolen the limelight. They're the third set of twins to be born on Lingard's in vitro fertilisation program and have doubled the family of Cheryl and Greg Crossingham, who already have two sons. Mrs Crossingham had tried to have another child for some time before trying IVF.
We tried it once and it was unsuccessful. They offered me a chance to come back and have another go, which I did, and we got these.
How difficult was it to go through the program?
Oh, not the actual program wasn't hard. It was a little bit emotional after it failed the first time. You felt really let down and rejected because you had such high hopes that it was going to work out. But the actual program itself is easy. They make it really easy at the hospital for you.
Lingard's IVF scientist, Dr Jim Stanger, finds it a little hard to hide his delight in the program's success, but he says multiple births are unusual.
Overall, probably about 20% of pregnancies may result in a multiple pregnancy. That results from wanting to transfer more embryos back to the uterus than would normally occur in a natural conception. We find that our pregnancy rate is related to the number of embryos we transfer, such that when we're transferring around about 4 embryos, our pregnancy rate is about 30%. And of those, probably about 20% will end up being a multiple pregnancy.
The amalgamation idea came after the Newcastle South Bowling Club at Bar Beach was forced to stop trading, owing nearly $120,000 to creditors. The Workers' Club is currently negotiating a number of options, including absorbing the club's debt and allowing it to open its doors again as soon as possible. Secretary-Manager of the Newcastle Workers' Club, Peter Masters, says the decision in part relies on the club's creditors and whether they want the club to sell up or continue trading to regain their money. He says the question of amalgamation may be a solution for other smaller clubs experiencing financial difficulties.
For some clubs it may be an ideal solution because it probably provides economies of scale and an injection of full-time management that at the moment that they can't afford. It might be the answer for a lot of clubs that are in trouble, but it's not the answer for every club.
Why do you think this trend is happening with the smaller clubs?
Well, they must find it very difficult with so many clubs. A lot of them have to rely on voluntary management and voluntary workers, and it's very difficult for them to be able to do all the things that are necessary these days to keep a club profitable. It's not an easy thing anymore to make sure that a club makes a profit.
And what sort of benefits to both the club members at Newcastle South and the Workers' Club?
Well, there are mutual benefits. I mean, the members here can now socially use the Workers' Club and the amenities there, and our 20,000 plus members have an additional social outlet.
The club, which has a strong tradition and a long history in Newcastle, and which has fostered many great champions like Eve Wiltshire, may be trading again as early as this weekend, but that depends on further negotiations and a meeting of the club's creditors.
Peavy is making a comeback to the boxing scene following a 12-month absence after he lost the national super bantamweight title to Mark Cribb. He was back in the ring last night to defend the New South Wales junior lightweight title, which he won from his opponent Roger Henry 18 months ago. Henry had to pull off a kilo following the 12 o'clock weigh-in to reach 59 kilos, but seemed to suffer little effect. His sights firmly set on regaining the title, he convincingly won the first round of the fight, refereed by Joe. Peavy was slow to gain momentum, but by the fourth round, savage blows were exchanged. In the middle rounds, it was a battle of tactics, with Peavy outmaneuvering Henry to win on points. Up to the ninth, the fight could have gone either way, but Peavy won the final round convincingly to retain his title by a unanimous decision from the 3 judges.
policy kept the council's planning committee in session until late this afternoon. The policy, introduced early last year, sets standards for the construction of private property access roads in rural areas. Now the requirements of the policy are being criticised as expensive and perhaps illegal.
There's been some discussion from residents in the area that it's not council's responsibility to insist on a standard of road where that road's a private road or an internal access road. At the moment they're reviewing that policy as to whether it should still apply.
The committee resolved to seek legal advice on whether it does have the power to enforce road standards on private property. The council is also considering revising the policy to make the requirements less stringent.
There's a thing called knife.
I'm Matthew Clark. Ambulance rescue units were at Lake Macquarie's Vales Point Power Station today for a mock-up rescue exercise. The station's first aid team has undergone a week-long rescue training course, and today they were showing what they'd learnt.
Join Ray Deneen and Anna Manzoni for all the news tonight at 6.
Hello, I'm Mark Warren. While most of us are thinking about the downturn in the economy and lack of production, at least in one section of the valley, production's up. In this case, it's goats.
Join Ray Deneen and Anna Manzoni for all the news tonight at 6.
Dog obedience trials are keenly contested events which highlight the depth of the relationship between man and man's best friend. They're also the culmination of hours of training for both, and today at Hillsborough all that training was put to the test in a competition run by the Newcastle All Breeds Dog Training Club. A star performer in the utility class was this Weimaraner, Clancy, who proved more than adept at sniffing out different objects, as well as heeling and generally doing what he was told. In the SR class, this Kelpie Cross Kong worked like a real trooper. In fact, a star pupil for an obviously dedicated and hard-working handler. Although that wasn't quite the case with Ricky, the German short-haired pointer, who still needs a bit of schooling. Classes range from the novice through to open and utility, and that 190 dogs of about 17 breeds took part shows a strong following for the pastime. The show continues tomorrow with a special agility course in the morning, where dogs will be seen racing the clock, doing different tasks similar to show jumping. One dog that'll have to pick up his game for any chance tomorrow will be Jed the Weimaraner, who failed to jump back over an obstacle after retrieving a dumbbell. That didn't impress either the judge or the owner. But when you think about it, maybe Jed isn't so silly. I mean, to go around rather than over the jump shows more than just a bit of good sense, don't you think?
And I suppose it's like breeding racehorses. You've got to keep the pedigree going, and to breed a national champions are like getting father, I suppose.
You're right, yeah. You've got to try and, well, I try to create families with them. A lot of people have got their own ideas on how close they go, sort of thing. I mainly stick to half brother, half sister, and cousins and things like that, but you can go quite close if you want, if the birds are good enough, I think.
I came into it, as a matter of fact, from a sporting injury. Right. Dad bought the birds and we started breeding from there.
One thing I noticed, Chris, is when your average man that hangs a budgie on the front veranda is me, I come in here and see the difference in size of these blokes.
Yeah, size is a big factor these days. In England, they get birds 10 inches long, which is pretty big.
Well, they're almost the size of a grass parrot, some of these, aren't they? Yeah. Congratulations, Alan, on that.
Thank you very much.
A beautiful trophy to go with it, too.
I think so, yeah. I was very proud of it.
What might also surprise you is that the Newcastle Club alone, with its some 300 members, produced about 15,000 birds last year, with the major cities of Sydney and Melbourne perhaps 500,000 between them. A top flight bird could cost $100, with one Central Coast breeder of note sold out till 1990. What makes a good budgie? Judge Bill Hancock.
We look for size, type and colour. We've got here a Latino hen has been judged already as to being the champion novice. Now, just as a comparison, you can see that this bird was in the same class.
Now, to get the eventual winner, showmanship comes into it all the time. We have a scale of points. However, it's very, very hard to judge on a scale of points because the subject has got to have oomph or showmanship. It's a word I can never find, but no scale of points can give you that.
The feature of the Bell Swans match was the passing of a milestone by central defender Derek Bull, who's now completed 200 games for the club. At the season's start, Bull had called it a day, but suffered from the old itchy feet and made a reappearance. The club today honoured Bull for his great service.
Meet 26-year-old Bill Connolly. He's one of our real hopefuls in the state powerlifting championships this weekend. He's also blind. He started losing his eyesight at 7. He's gradually lost more, and now he's virtually down to nothing. He can't see people or objects. All he can see is light. For Bill, weightlifting is one of the best things he's done in his life.
Well, it's very important to me because it's changed my lifestyle a lot. And before I was a bit of a larrikin, and now I've quietened down a lot and got right into the sport, and I'm really happy with my life at the moment.
He's been successful too. He's won a number of gold medals in national championships for disabled people and won the last Sports Star of the Year Encouragement Award. This weekend is his first big tournament in able-bodied competition, and he admits he's out to prove a point.
I think I am, because I'm out to show able-bodied people that people with a disability can do the things that an able-bodied person can do. So if I can do well, it's going to make people sit up and watch.
Bill won't be content if he just wins this weekend. He's got a long-term ambition to go much further than that.
Well, I hope to represent Australia at green and gold. That's what I really want to do in able-bodied competition.
Tony Nicholas conducted his study with 49 Hunter Valley couples between 1983 and 1985. He found that parents who lose their baby through sudden infant death syndrome experience greater grief in the short term, but it's the parents of congenitally handicapped children who in the long term need the greatest professional support. The study has been taken up by the Medical Journal of Australia and more than 20 overseas institutions, an indication of the new ground it breaks in this area of research.
I think this has fairly significant implications for the delivery of services in terms of support for these families. I think also that in terms of the data we're looking at procedures whereby, for example, the college is involved in training nurses, the university is involved in training doctors. This sort of information now can be provided as part of their ongoing undergraduate training, which I think would be very vital, and particularly I think for the Valley, because it's a study of Hunter Valley parents.
Mr. Nicholas says that his study will be used by health and social workers to learn how to effectively deal with parents who experience this kind of grief.
I think what we need to do is to be accessible to these people. If we're a professional, to be accessible, to let them know what services are available and give the parents time to work through a lot of the confusion that they feel, a lot of the ambivalence they think they're in fact receiving, and that we don't in fact tell them what they should do and what they shouldn't do. In other words, constrict their choice.
Weather fine, track good for what was a big day. Seemed like hundreds of riders were there, from the very young to the senior men's divisions. One of those seniors is Central Coast postie Phil Harmscourt, who was hoping to gain sponsorship to stake a claim for a world title.
A lot of people think BMX is just a kid's sport, but it's progressing to be a very high competitive and very professional sport now. There's classes 17 and over, 17 to 25. There's a 25 to 39 and a 40 and over class, and they're all very well filled up classes, very professional.
Phil, you've got the Australian title, the New South Wales and ACT titles and many other titles, and have been undefeated for a long while and want to take that one or two steps further, don't you?
Yes, I'd like to take that to Slough in England for the world titles. I feel I've got a good chance in the world titles. I train hard and I feel pretty confident of making the finals.
During the break for lunch, the Haro Tricks team displayed their stuff, and it's suffice to say, they can ride.
After two successive losses, Wests were keen to beat Central Charlestown. But it was not to be an easy match, and at half-time, Wests were trailing 8-10. They fought back to lead 22-12 at one stage in the second half, before a late rally by Central saw the final score much closer at 22-18. There will be two more premiership clashes today. Macquarie United face Norths at Toronto, and Waratah and Cessnock clash at Waratah Oval. Double bungers, Catherine Wheels and Sparklers are childhood memories for most of us. Cracker Night has always been a special occasion, even more so for children. But Cracker Night has also seen too many tragedies. Fireworks are dangerous and each year took their toll upon the careless. Some lost their eyesight and others were burnt and scarred forever. In recent years, the state government has restricted the sale of fireworks to the public and encouraged large public Cracker Night displays. From next year, fireworks will no longer be sold over the counter in New South Wales. So remember, if you're setting off fireworks for the last time tonight, please be careful. Or if you can, go to see the Cracker Night Spectacular at the International Sports Centre.
Protected under the National Parks and Wildlife Service.
For the Wallaroo dump for Tomago's aluminium waste at the weekend. However, added the proviso that the waste be non-toxic. All activities at the dump regarding disposal and transportation of waste are to be monitored by Tomago, with the monitoring audited by the State Pollution Control Commission. This is just one of the objections from the oyster farmers. Vice President of the Port Stephens branch of the Australian Oyster Farmers and Producers Association, Rod Moffat, says as well the first proposal from the company involved dumping around 9,000 tonnes of waste a year. Now that proposal has been brought down to 4,500 tonnes a year. It's still too much, as a build-up of toxicity could leak into nearby wetlands, damaging the marine ecosystem. Then there was a delay while a study was made into an alternative site. This, he says, accomplished nothing, as no real effort was made to find another site. Mr Moffat also says there's too much of a grey area between what is classed as toxic and non-toxic. He says that until these areas are resolved and a more efficient and more direct monitoring system is provided by an outside agent, such as the SPCC, the proposal is not acceptable. But the fight is not over. The Wallaroo Group will meet next Saturday to discuss the latest developments and what their next step may be.
was just what the Newcastle Bowling Association needed, as they are the first non-metropolitan area to host this major title. As you can see, a big crowd was on hand to witness some fine bowling on the beautifully prepared greens. With 4 teams involved and the whole green in operation, the spectators' attention is spread throughout the games. Finally, the Sydney team from Western Suburbs Leagues Club, with the red marked bowls, took the state number 1 Pennants Championship by a full 40 shots, 98 to 58. Their club has had a little to cheer about on the rugby league field in years, so maybe fate has dealt them a good hand at last. Newcastle sole finalist Wall's End went down 83 to 70 to North Mead at the Cabramatta Greens also this afternoon.
Rainbow Recycling is located in this cottage, Georgetown Road, Waratah. Next door in the Advisory Services Centre, arts and craft workshops have begun, offering a wide selection of activities for the creative and the crafty. Inside the recycling cottage, a smorgasbord of unwanted factory offcuts provide unusual and colourful materials ideal for making things with a little difference. But as coordinator Lillian Henshaw explains, the service offers more than just odds and ends.
Well, apart from the workshops and the materials, we have consultancy services. We have a craftsperson available, Sandra Tate, who can help people with ideas for projects and so on. We also do demonstrations. We can go out and do demonstrations. We can do workshops in the community as well for a very reasonable charge. We also have a mobile resource unit, which is the Rainbow Recycling Show, and that's available for preschools, playgroups, community groups who would like a really fun-filled 2 hours of music and craft.
The centre began operation last July, funded by a Commonwealth Employment Program scheme. Now they're self-sufficient, and although they offer a unique product, they must survive in a buyer's market.
It's a lot of hard work, but it's going well. We are one of the very few CEP projects that has survived the post-funding period. And our existence really, though, depends on community support. If people come along to our workshops, for example, if they come along and use our materials, use all the services that we provide, then Rainbow will be here for a long time to come, hopefully.